Hello everyone, welcome to the 140 Literary and Jury Charge. We're going to start off with some civil jury charge. Ready? Now, I want to talk about the kinds of evidence that you have heard in a case such as this. There are two kinds of evidence, direct and circumstantial. Direct evidence is testimony by a witness about what that witness personally saw or heard or did. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence. I mean that it is proof of one or more facts from which one can determine that another fact exists. You may consider both direct and circumstantial evidence in deciding this case. The law permits you to give equal weight to both, but it is for you, the jury, to decide how much weight to give any and all of the evidence that came before you. Statements and arguments of counsel are not evidence in the case. When, however, there is an occurrence where the attorneys on both sides stipulate or agree to the existence of some fact, then the jury must accept that stipulation and regard that fact as having been proved. Now, in addition, the court may take down what is known as judicial notice of certain facts or certain events, and I will tell you shortly about something of which the court has taken judicial notice. You will arrive at your verdict by applying these rules of law that I have stated to you to the facts as you determine them to be. It is my duty to explain to you the rules of law that you will apply to this case. It is your duty to determine the facts. You will note from the oath that is about to be taken by the bailiffs that they too, as well as all other persons, are forbidden to communicate in any way or manner with any member of the jury on any subject touching the merits of the case. All right. I have an article here on keep the change. Some people thrive on novelty, not me, especially when what's new is my father's impending third marriage. All right. Here we go. Ready? People who look favorably upon change have a language of their own. They're the ones who go around telling their friends that a little change will do you good. They ask, what will tomorrow bring, as if not knowing tomorrow's agenda were a blessing. Then there are people who avoid change at any cost. When we're asked what's new, we answer nothing and mean that as good news. I, for example, never worry about marking up the wall when I hang a painting because once I put that painting up, I plan for it to stay put forever. As for my husband, I picked him out when I was so young, my mother had to come with me to get a marriage license. And I plan, knock on wood, to be married to him forever, which explains why it is problematic for me to have a father who sees himself on fast forward. I will tell you about the night my father called and asked me, "Are you sitting down?" I never sit still when he calls. I run around the kitchen, fry things, scrub, anything to avoid hearing the details of his love life. I've stopped dating the tax lady. I'm dating my nurse. My nurse quit. Do you think that means she likes me or doesn't like me? Isn't it a daughter's prerogative to think of her father as stable, the North Star, a permanent point of reference. I don't want to hear about his love life at all. Let him tell me about the things most daughters hear from their fathers. High blood pressure would be fine. I want him to be a solid, static, and sexless old father who will either accept his bachelorhood or find some reliable, dowdy person and settle down. Sit down now, he said. I sat. I'm getting married, he said. I've heard this before. This will be his second try at marriage since, years ago, he and my mother divorced. When it comes to relationships, he's a klutz, and he would be the first to admit it. He marries the wrong person, and after he notices he can't figure out how to make the most of a disaster, he's the kind of person who says, try again. Whom are you marrying? I asked, because I hadn't a clue. He said, she's a woman in the community chorus. That sounded okay to me. I pictured a retired school music teacher. Short and sweet. I was prepared to hear that in her effort to gain the affection of her future step-people. She was sending my family cookies. Though I was disconcerted to hear of the end of my father's latest state of bachelorhood, I was consoled by the greater goods I could anticipate, namely, a more conventional family structure and holidays with a permanent cast of characters. I'm happy for you, Dad, I said, because at that point, I still was happy for myself. By the way, he said, she's blonde, she's gorgeous, and she's your age. I hated her right away. I don't want a lovely new stepmother who will take my place. This is the ultimate in sibling rivalry. I'm the lovely young woman in my father's life. I'm the one who represents beauty and liveliness. I'm the one who gets to supply him with the sweet little babies who will smile up at him the way I used to. Those of us who resist novelty are not dummies. We know there's next to nothing we can do in the face of change. Essentially, all we can do is whine with the hope of gaining some sympathy. Having failed to get sympathy, I tried to stop change. I called my father back and told him he was making a big mistake. You're too old. She's too young. And when it comes to marriage, you've never been good at it. He said he appreciated my concern, but he still had to give marriage another try. After all, I think I have the right to a little personal happiness, he said. So I went to my father's wedding. In the middle of a small reception room, surrounded by my father's friends and our relatives, was a tall, painfully elegant woman. Next to her, I knew I would feel like Mother Goose. She greeted me and my daughters immediately, telling me how happy she was that I could share this moment, and was telling my girls how happy she was to become their new grandmother. My big girl whispered to me, This is weird. The girls were introduced to their future grandmother's son from her first marriage. Got that? I told the girls, he's actually your uncle. He's my stepbrother, and he's 5 years old. Weird, weird, weird. My kids went out on the patio to play with their new little uncle, leaving me with my future stepmother. Every day, she said, I learned something more wonderful about your father. He's remarkable. He sure is, I said. I looked through the crowd to find this remarkable man. My father was hardly recognizable. He was in his tuxedo, unusually dashing. He handed me a glass of champagne and asked, "Do I look happy?" He did, and I meant it when I told him I hoped that this happiness for him would never change. "I'll leave you two to yourselves," said my future stepmother. "I know you have things to say." I had to admit, I liked the way she said that. I liked the way she respected the private relationship that my father and I have. "You know," she told me before the ceremony, "you are the apple of your father's eye." I decided this is someone whom I might come to like. She had assured me that nothing between my father and me really had changed. All right. Kind of a funny little article there. I have some congressional record, and the subject is Social Security recipients. Ready? Mr. Speaker, today I am introducing legislation to remove the outside limitation on earnings of Social Security recipients. Currently eligible recipients who are between the ages of 65 and 72 have their Social Security benefits reduced if they are earning an income greater than $38,000 per annum. Presently, the reduction rate is $1 for every $2 earned. When an individual becomes eligible for Social Security benefits at 65 years of age and continues to work, he or she is liable for an amount of tax that is equal to 50% on their income. I feel, Mr. Speaker, this is extremely unfair. First, if a recipient is denied the full benefits under the Social Security program because of outside employment, we are putting a Social Security recipient in the same category as a welfare recipient. Isn't Social Security a retirement program? Social Security requires forced payments to the government, which holds this money in trust for the recipient. Social Security recipients are not wards of the state. They are entitled to receive their benefits as a matter of right. Second, a limit on earnings hits those who need the money the most to survive in today's economy. How many retirees must work to supplement their income? This income, in return, is taxed by the Social Security Administration. Third, by punishing an individual who works, the restriction or limitation on earnings discourages productivity. Every person should have the right to pursue an individual goal after age 65. If a person chooses to continue to be a productive member of the workforce after 65, one should not be penalized. Let it be known to all, Mr. Speaker, that I am earnestly awaiting the decision of the House Ways and Means Committee whether to give this bill prompt and adequate consideration. All right. We're going to finish the excerpt from Tuesdays with Maury. Okay, here we go. His voice was raspy, which usually meant he needed to stop for a while. Death ends a life, not a relationship. Even though he was weak, he went on to say, still, there are a few more rules that I know to be true about love and marriage. If you don't respect the other person, you are going to have a lot of trouble. If you don't know how to compromise, you are going to have a lot of trouble. If you can't talk openly about what goes on between you as a couple, you are going to have a lot of trouble. And if you don't have a common set of values in life, you are going to have a lot of trouble. Your values must be alike. And the biggest one of those values, Mitch, is your belief in the importance of your marriage. He sniffed and then closed his eyes for a moment. Personally, he sighed, his eyes still closed. I think marriage is a very important thing to do, and you are missing out on a lot in life if you don't try it. He ended the subject by quoting a poem that he believed in like a prayer. Love each other or perish. As I pondered what he had just said, he went on to say, so many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they are busy doing things that they think are important. This is because they are chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. He closed his eyes for a moment and quickly opened them again. I could tell that he had so much more to say. Then he said, if you are trying to show off for people at the top, forget it. They will look down on you anyhow. And if you are trying to show off for the people down at the bottom, forget it. They will only envy you. Status will get you nowhere in life. Only an open heart will allow you to float equally between everyone. Great advice there. All right. Just a few minutes left. And I'm going to leave off with closing arguments. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to the investigation for just a minute though. Sabrina doesn't show up for work on the 1st or the 2nd of November. On the 3rd, the Helm family and friends become understandably concerned, and they begin to retrace Sabrina's steps. Where is Sabrina? They are asking how they can find her. On the 4th, both the citizen efforts and the law enforcement efforts to find Sabrina are kind of ramped up. They do some aerial searches. They look at financial transactions. They check out her cell phone records, which towers that her cell phone kind of pinged off of or bounced off of a close tower. And also, you will hear about the distribution of missing person posters at that time given out by the citizens. You will hear that on the morning of the 5th, her vehicle is found at 10:30 in the morning by the Tabors. At about 2 o'clock, all of the investigators become actively involved in the searching, or at least in obtaining search warrants, as well as searching the property. And you will then hear about the searches continuing. Then very quickly on Sunday, the firearms and garage is searched, and you will hear about the evidence that is obtained at that location. On the 7th, it becomes more full scale. There are lots and lots, in fact, hundreds of law enforcement officers and volunteers and citizens that become involved in the search of this massive 40-acre property. At that time, all the junked vehicles are then searched, and you will hear about the discovery of the burn barrel. All right, so we will stop there. And that concludes our 140 literary and jury charge. Have a great day.